The federal government has signed new contracts with two Australian-based companies specialising in drone defence. The contracts are worth a combined $30 million as the government spruiks $7 billion in new funding for counter-drone technology. Defence correspondent Tom Lowry has more.
Yeah, Ros, the Defence Industry Minister Pat Conroy has signed two new contracts today with two Australian companies that specialise in counter-drone technology. The government says this is the big lesson out of recent conflicts abroad, particularly the war in Ukraine and the current conflict in the Middle East as well, where drones have really dominated on those foreign battlefields. The first is with a company called SciPac. It's an Australian company. It's best known for manufacturing cardboard drones that have been used quite extensively by the Ukrainian armed forces, but this is a slightly different technology that Australia is acquiring today. These are quadcopter drones that carry munitions that can be flown essentially up towards an incoming drone and used to take it down. Now, the government says the key here is that it's quite a cheap technology as well. The second contract that's being signed is with a company called AIM for its fractal laser. Now, this is a very high-powered laser capable of cutting through steel. It too is a counter-drone technology. It can be used to bring down swarms of drones. Drones are used en masse and working together. This is quite a capable technology, the government says, in that kind of situation. The Minister, Pat Conroy, says the key here is that both of these platforms are very cheap. What's been seen abroad is that countries like Iran have used quite cheap drones worth only tens of thousands of dollars, but countries like the UAE or even the United States have had to fire missiles worth millions of dollars to bring those drones down. Now, what the Australian government says is wants to avoid that situation and invest in these kinds of capabilities that are much, much cheaper than firing off missiles. Here's a bit of what the minister had to say on this.
These systems are cheap but highly advanced. You don't want to be in a position long term, and this is common sense, to have to fire $3 million missiles to take out a $100,000 drone. These systems are in the tens of thousands of dollars. And that's the whole point of this. You want it to be more expensive for your opponent than you. And this is what these systems come at.
And Tom, this is part of a wider focus on counter-drone technology.
Yeah, Ros, despite that focus on cheap technology, there is some big money behind these announcements. These contracts themselves are quite small, $20 million and $10 million between the two of them, so $30 million all up. But it's part of a much larger pool of funding announced last week, $7 billion in funding for counter-drone technology over the next decade, part of a wider spend of $22 billion that's been funded over the past few years. So some significant money going into this area. The government says, though, there is this new focus on cheap platforms that can be produced at enormous scale and volume. Australia has really been at the forefront of large, expensive and highly capable drones over the past few years, thinking of technology like the Ghost Bat that can fly alongside F-35 fighter jets, or the Ghost Shark that can sail alongside Australian submarines. These are very, very highly capable platforms, but they are expensive. What the government's focusing on here is much smaller, much cheaper, but also quite capable technology too. So expect to see a real focus on both drones and counter-drones over the next few years.